Welcome to this explainer. Right this very minute, a highly complex, overlapping series of high-stakes military and economic events is unfolding in the Middle East. It's a lot to unpack. Amidst a massive storm of conflicting reports and live military actions, we're going to provide a strictly impartial, facts-first breakdown of the chaos in the Strait of Hormuz. We're not taking sides here, we're simply laying out exactly what the data and international reports are telling us. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the roadmap for untangling this crisis piece by piece. First up, chaos in the Strait. Then, the contested boat strikes. Third, unpacking Project Freedom. Fourth, attacks on the UAE. And finally, the global ripple effect. So, Section 1, Chaos in the Strait. Let's see how this all builds up, because to really grasp the gravity of what's happening today, we absolutely have to establish the geographic and historical stakes of this specific waterway. Back in February, the US and Israel launched airstrikes on Iran, which led Tehran to respond by effectively blocking the Strait of Hormuz. Now, why is this specific channel such a big deal? Well, roughly 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas usually passes through here. It is a massive global bottleneck. Then, in early April, we actually saw a glimmer of hope. A fragile ceasefire was announced. Under that agreement, Iran paused its drone and missile strikes on Gulf countries. Though, honestly, very few vessels were actually able to transit the strait, and the U.S. maintained its own blockade on Iranian ports. Fast forward to today, that fragile ceasefire has completely shattered. It's been replaced by a sudden wave of new boat strikes, explosions, and rapidly escalating rhetoric. Which brings us to Section 2, the contested boat strikes. Let's look at the immediate and, frankly, wildly conflicting reports coming out of the waters on Monday. When military engagements happen in highly contested zones, we often get the fog of war, and we're seeing that vividly right here. We have two entirely contradictory accounts of what went down. On one side, we have the U.S. claim. President Trump announced that U.S. military helicopters struck 7 small Iranian fast boats. The U.S. also stated that its Navy destroyers and U.S.-flagged merchant ships successfully sailed through the straits safely. But then, on the flip side, we have the Iranian claim, which disputes this entirely. Citing a military source, Iranian state media reported that the U.S. actually hit 2 small cargo vessels, resulting in the tragic deaths of 5 civilians. Plus, Iran claims its military fired warning shots at a U.S. warship, which is a claim the U.S. military outright denies. So you have Washington and Tehran presenting diametrically opposed narratives of the exact same event. Moving on to Section 3, Unpacking Project Freedom. To understand why those U.S. vessels were moving through the strait in the first place, we need to zoom out a bit and look at the broader American military operation underway right now. It's called Project Freedom. This is essentially a U.S.-led initiative to use military protection to guide stranded, neutral commercial ships safely out of the blockaded Persian Gulf. According to the U.S. president, countries from all over the world have actively asked the United States to step in and help free up their ships. We're talking about neutral, innocent bystander vessels that have been completely locked up in the Strait of Hormuz since the hostilities first kicked off back in February. And we actually already have a very concrete example of this operation in action. The major shipping company Maersk confirmed that one of its U.S.-flagged commercial vessels, the Alliance Fairfax, has successfully exited the Strait of Hormuz. This ship had been stranded in the Gulf since the end of February. Maersk reported that the U.S. contacted them, offered military protection, and the transit was completed without incident, leaving all crew members safe and unharmed. So this is the first tangible proof of Project Freedom achieving its stated goal. And this brilliantly illustrates the diplomatic pushback from Tehran regarding this exact operation. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi issued a really sharp rebuke. He stated, "Events in the strait make clear that there's no military solution to a political crisis. Project Freedom is Project Deadlock." This quote is absolutely essential because it frames Iran's perspective perfectly. They view the U.S. military escort of commercial ships not as freeing neutral bystanders, but as an aggressive military escalation that only deepens the political stalemate. Next up, Section 4, Attacks on the UAE. While the boat strikes were happening out in the water, a simultaneous and incredibly serious situation was unfolding on the Arabian Peninsula at the UAE's biggest port and oil storage facility, Fujairah. UAE authorities reported that their air defenses had to engage a massive barrage. We're talking 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, and 4 drones. Local officials confirmed one of the strikes caused a large fire. Furthermore, the UAE's foreign ministry reported that a tanker affiliated with ADNOC, their state-owned oil company, was actually hit. India's foreign ministry also confirmed 3 of their nationals were injured in the attack. Abu Dhabi is calling this a dangerous escalation and reserving the right to respond. Now, for their part, Iranian state TV quoted an unnamed military official stating that Iran has no plans to target the UAE, making the origin and motivation of these heavy strikes just another heavily contested point in this conflict. So you might be wondering, why target Fujairah? Geographically, this is absolutely critical to understand. Fujairah sits on the UAE's eastern coast on the Gulf of Oman, just beyond the Strait of Hormuz, and there is a pipeline running directly from the oil fields of Abu Dhabi straight to Fujairah. This pipeline is an essential geopolitical bypass valve. It allows limited amounts of crude oil to be loaded onto tankers and shipped out to world markets without ever having to pass through the blockaded Strait of Hormuz. So hitting Fujairah is literally hitting the very infrastructure designed to circumvent the blockade. And the chaos isn't just contained to the UAE or US-Iranian engagements either. The violence is spilling over across the entire region. South Korea reported an explosion on one of its ships anchored just off the UAE coast. Meanwhile, in neighboring Oman, state media reported that 2 people were injured when a residential building was targeted in Buqa, which sits right along the coastline of the strait. We are seeing real collateral damage affecting multiple nations and innocent civilians across the Gulf. Finally, Section 5, the global ripple effect. So the crucial point is this. To truly understand the scale of this crisis, we have to zoom out and look at what this is costing the rest of the world. And it comes down to this number, 20,000. That is the estimated number of seafarers on roughly 2,000 ships who have been completely trapped in the Gulf since the US-Iran war began back in February. I mean, just imagine being stranded on a commercial vessel for months on end. Reports are indicating growing and severe concerns over dwindling vital supplies on these ships and the drastically deteriorating physical and mental health of these 20,000 innocent sailors caught in the crossfire. The human toll is just staggering. And then, of course, there's the economic toll, $115. The benchmark Brent crude oil price spiked past $115 a barrel shortly after the reports of the attacks on the Fujairah oil facilities came to light. That was a jump of more than 5% in a single day. When 20% of the world's oil is bottlenecked and the bypass facilities are under missile fire, the global energy markets react violently, and that ultimately affects prices at the pump for people all over the globe. Now, what's really interesting about this international diplomatic backlash is how unified yet carefully worded it has been. Just look at the spread of reactions. France's President Emmanuel Macron called the strikes unjustified and unacceptable. Germany's chancellor demanded an end to the blockade, explicitly stating Tehran must stop holding the world hostage and return to the negotiating table. Regionally, Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry called on Iran to respect the principles of good neighborliness, while Qatar strongly condemned the tanker attack and called for the strait's unconditional reopening. Across the board, from Europe to the Middle East, there is a unified demand for de-escalation, even as the military reality on the ground and on the water points in the exact opposite direction. Which leaves us with this final pressing question. With military escorts now engaging in firefights, critical bypass infrastructure under missile attack, and international diplomacy seemingly deadlocked, how long can the global supply chain, and more importantly, those 20,000 seafarers caught right in the middle of the crossfire, actually withstand a closed Strait of Hormuz? The pressure is mounting by the hour, and the stakes could literally not be higher. Thank you so much for engaging with this explainer. Keep your eyes on the data and stay curious.